Deep within the 10,000 demon forest, a group of youths are trying frantically to catch a scrawny youth clad in white. "Ludlow, if you come back here, we promise not to harm you," said a tall, towering youth with an expensive robe. Behind him were 4 other youths, seemingly out of breath and murmuring to themselves, "How is this little bastard so fast? He's a cripple with no martial arts talent." "Maybe he has a treasure," one said, but then was quickly ridiculed by the leader of the pack. Sneering, he said, "Have you ever seen a cripple use a treasure?" He was already slightly annoyed at not being able to catch up to this obvious nobody. As his mind raced, he couldn't help but be amazed at the illustrious Ludlow family within the city of Willowbrook. Even its lowest and weakest member was giving them a run for their money. With another look of frustration, the leader bellowed out again, "Ludlow, just a drop or a barrel of your blood could save me years of training. Quit wasting all of it and give it here," he said, speeding up with an outrageous look plastered on his face. "Gus, you piece of shit, I almost died because of you," the young man who had been running all this time said as he kicked up dirt in Gus' face. Damon Ludlow, because of his lack of martial talent, is often avoided by the major echelons of the family. While most kids his age can lift a staggering 300 pounds, he was merely below average, struggling with a measly 50-pound weight. Since the last family annual meetup where the elders test the abilities of the youth, the family took little interest in him. It wasn't much longer when other smaller families learned of the situation. Normally, all of the Ludlow children would be under protection and accompanied by a practitioner of the body refinement level 7 or above. Because of Damon's lack of abilities, the family simply had no use for him. But that didn't mean they would risk the bloodline leaking out. So even some members with awful abilities would at least have a practitioner of the body refinement level 3 at the least. However, not only does Damon not show any martial arts talent, not even his bloodline was visible, leading to many speculations that he wasn't even a descendant of the Ludlow family. Since his parents went missing many years ago, the rumors and speculation only grew until he was considered an orphan in the family, receiving no benefits and care. Due to all of this, other families wouldn't just stand by and not take the initiative to extract his blood to see for themselves if his body did contain even a sliver of Ludlow bloodline. It could impact the destiny of several major families. A day ago at the outer circle of the martial arts pavilion within the city of Willowbrook stood a dark-haired, dark-eyed youth of 14, wearing a loose, baggy white robe. This was none other than Damon Ludlow. He was staring at the pavilion for the 4th time this week because normally other kids around his age would be streaming in and out with happy expressions on their faces, and he would always hope he could be one of those kids. Although the pavilion was owned by the Ludlow family, Damon knew he wasn't allowed inside. You had to reach body refinement level 1 to gain access to the first floor. Looking down at his weak, feeble body, Damon shook his head. About to walk off, suddenly he heard laughter and jeers from behind. Gus and his band of idiots stood laughing and pointing. "Hey, little toad, why come here to stare? Just go in." "Oh wait, that's right. The Ludlow's wastrel, no talent, just a waste of blood," Gus said, allowing others to look over and whisper. "Yeah, I think that's the waste of the Ludlow. Yeah, look at his eyes, nothing special," another in the crowd said, carrying on. "That's right, I heard he may be an orphan," looking pleased with himself. Gus then continued the taunting. After all, he had never liked Damon. When they were kids, Damon was favored and doted on a lot by the elders until the age of 7, when his bloodline never activated. Since then, no one cared for his life and death within the family. He often bounced around his mother's side of her family, the Thomas family, which is where Gus is from. Gus Thomas could be considered the jewel of the Thomas family in looks and cultivation. He was unmatched when compared to the other Thomas boys and men. Although these things are important in a world where power stands supreme, Gus Thomas wasn't always the smartest. He truly believed he could acquire some of Damon's blood using the blood transfusion method. It was a costly surgery that could even kill the benefactor, and there was a little of 1 or 2% chance of the blood transfusion even working. By adding rare elixirs and some treasure to make the process easier, it was once again extremely pricey and didn't necessarily alleviate all dangers. In order to acquire the bloodline of the Ludlow, many would risk their lives for the attempt, but only someone as foolish as Gus Thomas would attempt this procedure on such an unremarkable youth. Although the bloodline was tempting, others could obviously tell Damon had none of the features. Not many would risk their lives or even spend the kind of wealth to attempt for Damon's life. After all, the procedure was costly and endangered both lives of the party. Seeing Damon's nonchalant look only made Gus angrier. "Ludlow trash, I think it's time we go into the pavilion. You can be my guest." Hearing this, Damon's eyes lit up. "Fine, lead the way then," he said, unworried about what Gus could be plotting. He has always wanted to see inside the pavilion for the past 7 years. He wasn't even allowed at its gates, which was why he stood so far back and watched. He won't be perturbed this time, taking the lead with long strides forward. Gus sneered, taking the lead as they approached the gates. "Welcome back, young Thomas Lord," the guard said respectfully, opening the gates. One of the guards only glanced at the band of idiots who followed Gus along, but had his eyes heavy on Damon, looking him up and down scornfully. "Young master, this friend of yours?" Looking slightly embarrassed and annoyed having this ordinary person alongside them. "I have my own plans," he said, waving his hand. The guard standing by, eyes lit up with understanding, and only shook his head, thinking to himself, "These youths are ruthless and fearless these days." The guards watched the youths stroll inside. One of the slower to realize guards then asked his working companion, "Why did they take that weak loser in?" Shaking his head, the other guard told him with a look of contempt in his eyes, as if looking at a child, "You don't even know the waste of the Ludlows?" The guard looked away before closing the gates and saying, "We recently updated our blood infusion mechanism, and its success rate is staggering 5%. If I'm correct, that Ludlow wastrel is about to die."